Alright, we started working on the billets. First thing I did, took my pattern, laid it on a hunk of leather, traced around it, and using my favorite little knife and a straight edge, I cut out the leather for the billet. Oh, there's a little bit of a fiber sticking out there. And now I am going to do some more work on the billet. I'm going to lay it out to put the buckle on it. And what I've already done is I took my dividers to find the center point. And then I took my chisel, which is exactly 1 inch wide, and laid that out along that point to lay out where my slot's going to be. To cut my slot, I'm going to start out with a hole punch. And the way I size these is I'll take the buckle and see if the tongue fits through it. Because if the tongue will fit through this, then it'll fit through the slot. Now, I make my slots 1 inch long, like on this belt here, and 1 inch long is just enough for the tongue to move back and forth. This is a different kind of buckle, but it's the same principle. Ah, there it goes. Need a little more light. Even though it's a bright, sunshiny day, it never hurts to have more light. There we go. I want to center this on my layout. We should be right there, yeah. Take my mallet. I like to make sure it's through. I'm gonna give it another whack. There we go. And we got a hole. I'll do that to the other end. Now I'm centering it over the hole. In other words, I'm putting the dot rather, my layout dot that I poked into my leather in the center of the hole, and then punching the hole on through. Yeah, no more. There we go. And then I'm going to take my chisel and connect the dots. Now I can cut this with a knife, but I prefer to do it this way. It works better for me. Now you got to remember that this hand's gimpy. So whatever works better with my gimpy hand is the way that I do it. And there you go, there's your slot. There's a little bit of a fuzzy bit there. I can just trim that off with my sharp little knife. Yeah, I keep this knife stropped. There we go. And the buckle will fit right up through there. Just like that. Ta-da! Now, once I have the buckle sitting in there, it's time to lay out the rest of it. Well, actually, I'm going to take the buckle out to do that. Let's see now. This piece will go on. Well, these aren't the actual pieces I'm using. They're just bits I've made basically out of scraps that I use for just such an occasion. And that will sit there, and this will sit under here, so put the buckle back in. Because the way this is going to work, I'm going to have one keeper underneath, and that's for the belt strap, for the Ranger belt strap. That's going to go through there, and those two ends are going to overlap. And then this piece is going to go here, and that's going to be the belt keeper for the other billet. And basically what I'm doing now is just trying to figure out where I'm going to put all my hardware so it sits just right. And that looks good right there. Because the next step is going to be to cut the end of this strap. Okay, this is where the strap end punches come in handy. I don't use them all the time, but it's one of those things, if you need them, they're handy to have. And I keep them stropped to make sure they're sharp. I know you can't really see what I'm doing because my hand's in the way, but basically I'm just stropping the edge to make sure it's nice and sharp. I've already done that, so I got two of them. I got 1.5 and 1 3/4, and this is 1 5/8, or rather it's for a 1 5/8 inch buckle. So my 1.5 isn't quite wide enough, so I grabbed my bigger one. But that one is actually just right. I've already found the center point of the strap. I just line up the pointy end of the strap end punch to that. Not sure if that'll work. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Extend it out a little bit more. Because with all the junk I'm going to stuff under this, I'm going to need lots of room. I can always trim it back later if I find that it's too long. But the only way to really lengthen it, I guess I could skive it over and glue a piece on, but that's really not the proper way to do things. Only real way then is to redo it. And here we go. We got a nicely shaped strap end. I'm going to use brass hardware to go with the buckle, so it'll look good. Let's see now. What do I got to do now? Ah, okay. I got to figure out where I'm going to put the hole for the little brass hardware thingies. Here's my buckle. I'll just fold it over like that, and figure I'll put it right about the width of the head. Right about there, look good. And again, I gotta find the center point with my dividers. Which you put it right there. Now, as soon as I can find my punch, I can start making holes. Okay, I got that hole laid out where I want it, and to find out what size, I just take and find which one fits over top of that, over top of the shaft of the Chicago screw. And again, I'll center it over that hole, or rather that mark. Now this can be done by eyeballing it, but when I try to do that, invariably, double check myself, I'm off just a little way or the other. Not really noticeable, but I notice it. Alright, we'll fold that over. Now this is the way I do it. I'm sure there are lots of other ways, but this is the way that seems to work for me. I'll fold that over, and then I'll take my scratch awl, center it in the hole I just made, and give it a, and that'll mark where it goes on the other side. Double check to make it center, make sure it's centered, and it is. And punch another hole on this side. And there you go. Now I'm going to continue on and punch the rest of the holes in this thing. And it should give me just enough to fit all that stuff under without having too much, because the last one's going to go right here, and that's going to give me room in here. Yeah, that'll work just fine. We'll be back in just a minute. Okay, here's our billet for the one side. And keeping in mind that these are not the keepers I'm going to be using. It's just this one's 3/4, this is a half. Those are the sizes I went for. In fact, this one is for my own personal belt that I've been working on, my between project. But you can see how this one's going to go underneath, and the strap's going to go through there, and then the other strap is going to go through there as well. And then the other end, the other billet, the tongue of that one's going to go under here. So now that I've got this side done, I can start figuring out how big to make the other one. I still got to bevel all the edges, but I'm not going to do any real finishing work on this one until I have both of them. That way I can do finishing work on both of them at the same time to make sure they look as close as possible to being the same. Alright, I got both of the billets done. And you already saw how this one goes together. And of course this has the holes in it for the buckle. And the keeper's going to sit right about there, and the other one's going to, you know, what I showed you before. Anyway, they're both done. And next up, I'm going to start the finishing process.